As the 1960s began, the world of rallying was about to change. Public interest in the sport had been ramping up since the conclusion of the Second World War, and by this time had become incredibly popular. This meant not only were individuals with their own cars interested in competing, but racing teams and even manufacturers themselves began to turn their focus onto the world of rallying. One such company was Austin. In 1959, the company had unveiled what they dubbed the Mini, which was sold under both the Austin and Morris marks. The car was designed to combat the popularity of European bubble cars like the Fiat 500 as a result of oil shortages in Britain. The Mini was to be the British equivalent, and it became incredibly popular and to this day remains one of the best-selling cars of all time in the UK. Upon its launch, the company realised something. The Mini, being small, light and with a short wheelbase, would be perfect for throwing around on a dirt track. Therefore, the Mini's rallying legacy began, and what also began was what many people consider the first true rally car. And quite quickly, the Mini showed the world that bigger is not necessarily better. The Mini's 1000cc engine only made 100 brake horsepower, so the drivers really had to push the little thing to its limits. But all this design and work ended up paying off. The Mini's first win came in 1960 at the Cork Rally in Ireland, and for the next couple of years it would rack up more and more trophies to its name. The likes of the Tulip Rally and Rally Sweden were all conquered by the plucky little Brit. Bear in mind, however, that the Mini wasn't without its competition. The likes of Mercedes, Citroën, Saab and Peugeot had also entered into the sport, although they insisted in racing with modified sedans, and even though they were notably much heavier than the front-running Mini, they were still some magnificent beasts, and certainly weren't pushovers. Citroën, for example, with their coveted DS model, saw their first win at the Monte Carlo Rally in 1959. Mercedes oversaw their 220 SE, which also picked up a number of wins. The Porsche 356 was also successful both as a stock car and with numerous modifications. Porsche also collaborated with Abarth to create the mouthful that is the Porsche 356B Carrera GTL Abarth, which begun its career in 1960. The Saab 96, however, was likely the Mini's biggest competitor throughout the early 60s, with Eric Carlson returning to the wheel with wins in the 1960, 61 and 62 RAC rallies, and of course in the 1962 and 1963 Monte Carlo rallies. The Saab 96, with all these wins under its belt, built up an image of quote-unquote reliability and toughness. There was also a little company, you may have heard of them, called Ford. In the 60s, Ford was really only known for one thing, and that was building a world-beating supercar to fuel their vicious rivalry with Ferrari on the track. However, Ford was also attempting to bring their corporate might to the dirt. Ford of Britain had launched their brand new economy car, the Cortina, in September of 1962, which went on, like the Mini, to become one of the best-selling cars in the UK of all time. The original Cortina did not see a career in motorsport, but the Ford Cortina Lotus, also dubbed the Lotus Cortina, certainly did. Ford collaborated with the British marque to upgrade the sedan mechanically, while they themselves took care of marketing and sales. Lotus fitted better rear suspension, a close-range gearbox straight out of the new Elan, and a 1.5 litre inline-4 in the front. Elsewhere, however, despite all of these efforts, the Mini had become the #1 racer, and throughout the early 60s dominated the sport. After their series of wins up until 1962, their team had their eyes set on the big one, the Monte Carlo Rally. The 1962 race was a good introduction for the coveted driver Pat Moss, sister of Sterling Moss, and was generally regarded as one of the most successful female rally drivers in history. She was also quoted as saying the Mini was twitchy and pretty unruly on the limit after winning the Tulip Rally earlier that year. The Mini returned once again to Monte Carlo in 1963, this time placing third at the hands of driver Rauno Aaltonen, the Finnish driver. However, it would be the Irish pilot Paddy Hopkirk who would finally champion the Monte Carlo Rally in 1964, where he had finished 6th the previous year. This win projected him into the spotlight, but the Finns weren't going to take this defeat sat down, and so in 1965 Timo Mäkinen swiped back with a win of his own at the Monte Carlo. The Mini was now at the top of its game. It wasn't just the Monte Carlo Rally that it succeeded in, it had also won the 1965 Thousand Lakes Rally, now known as the Finnish Rally, the 1962 and 1963 British Rally Championship, and the 1964 and 1965 Isle of Man Rally, not to mention the numerous other wins in countries like Germany and Poland. Heck, it even saw success outside of rallying, with 2 wins in the British Saloon Car Championship and even a victory at the final ever Finnish Grand Prix in 1963. The Mini was unstoppable, and with its team of excellent drivers, they had built upon the pioneers' efforts previous to 1960 and truly earned the title of the first proper rally car. Previous to the 60s, rallying had appeared as an alternate form of motorsport and slowly gained traction with fans worldwide. However, it was the early part of the decade that really cemented the sport as something that could be taken much more seriously. Big name brands began to take notice of the successes of the Mini and its peers, and as the years went on, more names would begin to rise in the sport.